In Privacy Watch, if you live in California, you may already be seeing emails from tech companies announcing changes to their terms of service. That's because the country's most powerful privacy protections law will go into effect on New Year's Day. California's Consumer Privacy Act gives Golden State residents a slew of new rights related to user data. New regulations aim to provide more control over the personal information that companies regularly collect and sell. Joan Solsman is a senior reporter covering media and technology for CNET, and she joins me now from New York City. Joan, thanks very much for being with us. What kinds of new protections does the California Consumer Privacy Act actually give people?
The act gives Californians the right to ask tech companies what kind of data they're collecting on them. They can request for that data to be deleted, and they can also tell companies don't sell that data to other people and make money off of it.
Right. So California is home to some major tech companies, of course. How are they reacting to this new law, and will they comply with it?
Pretty much all tech companies are scrambling and grappling with exactly how they're going to be enabling themselves to comply with this law. It's something that they haven't had to do before to this degree. They don't exactly know how it's going to be enforced, and they're not going to be getting the regulations finalized that really determine how it's going to be enforced until later. And of course, if they see companies getting sued for things that they're doing, that's going to change their behavior as well.
Well, can you explain what this might actually look like for someone in California that's using an app or a website that collects their data?
Yeah, you're probably going to start seeing notices, things that say, do not sell my info. You may start seeing portals or tools that allow you to access data, allow you to request it, allow you to delete it. But it's going to be a very wide variation among the different apps and services, internet companies that you interact with, depending on how they all figure out exactly what they're going to do to comply with this new regulation.
Well, let's talk about consent versus informed consent. It seems like people now have a greater ability to make choices about how companies use their data. Do people really understand what they're agreeing to when they allow a company to use and sell their data, and what the potential consequences can be?
Generally speaking, no. People don't really know what they're getting into when they agree to let companies protect their data, and that's not their fault. The internet and tech companies, they've evolved from this default status that you may create the data, but it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the company that stores it and holds it, and it's their right to sell it and use it as they want. That's been the default for how many tech companies and the internet has evolved. It's only recently that consumers have started to become unnerved by the trade-offs. Yes, you get convenience or more targeted advertising if a company has data on you, but you're not in control over what they do with that data. It's only recently that consumers have started to say, wait a second, I don't know if I really agree to this exchange.
Right, I imagine a pretty seismic shift for these tech companies. Well, if someone opts out of having their data collected, are there consequences? Could they lose access, for instance, to that service?
The California law is clear that companies cannot revoke the use of a service, revoke the use of an app, purely because you want to opt out of data collection. But what could happen is you could simply get a very stripped down version of a service. You could even be charged if you want to opt out of that data collection. The law says that it has to state to you what your data is valued at if the company is going to charge you for it, but that doesn't mean you're going to be getting the exact same kind of service without having that data being collected on you from now on.
Interesting. Well, how is this new law expected to affect the rest of the country when it comes to data privacy legislation?
Well, some companies are simply extending these rights beyond California to everybody in the U.S. and maybe even beyond. That's something we saw with a European privacy regulation. People might know of it by GDPR. It's something that, even though I'm not based in Europe, those regulations, because they were so expansive and in such a big territory, they affected people even outside Europe's borders. Even if companies don't decide to extend the rights beyond California, other states may follow suit. We've seen other states follow California's lead in regulation before, and there are 9 other states currently considering privacy regulations like this.
And you touched on this a moment ago, but how does this new legislation reflect a change in the way Americans are feeling about privacy when it comes to data and personal information?
For many years, companies touted this exchange of data collection for convenience. You let us know a little bit more about you, and we can recommend better movies, give you better playlists. But what we've seen, especially in the last 3 years, is that consumers are realizing just how much data there is on them and how it's being used to enrich other companies. They don't get to take part in any of that value creation.
Right. And
not to mention the fact that you're being monitored, and people are feeling more and more uncomfortable with that.
right, as they're learning more about it, they're wondering at what price does that convenience actually come. All right, well, Joan Solsman, thank you so much, Joan, for spending time with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.